What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Raw Prospect Podcast. This is episode 92. Today is January 27th, and joining me, as always, from Austin, Texas, the Stat King himself, Michael Wayne. What is up?
3 football games left in this football season for the NFL. Today, we are going to dive in to 2 of them. It's going to be hard to top what we saw last weekend, but at this point, I won't be surprised by anything. So today, on today's episode, we're going to do what we did last week, our prospect of the week for our opening segment. Then we will dive into both championship games, which will both be played on Sunday, by the way. And then after that, we will do a little bit more college basketball, the SEC Big 12 Challenge, just like the ACC does with the Big 10 every year. The SEC Big 12 Challenge, 2 of the best, arguably the 2 best conferences in college basketball. That happens this weekend. So we'll get into some of the games that are going on then. But we'll start with our prospect of the week segment. Second prospect of the week. So Emmy, who is your second prospect of the week? Second ever.
Yeah, second ever. Well, for this week, there was a lot to choose from. There's a lot of guys I could choose from. Particularly, there were 2 centers in the NBA, if you do not know, who had all-time level weeks and are having all-time level years this year in the NBA. Those 2 players being Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. And I could have chosen either of those guys and wouldn't have been wrong. There's no way you can go wrong between those 2. But I did end up going with Joel Embiid, simply because I just wanted to shine some light on what he has been doing recently. He has been absolutely incredible, and Jokic has been too. But I don't think people are talking about Embiid enough in terms of his skill set compared to like on a all-time scale, because I don't think we've seen a center with this type of skill set. His mobility, his ability to bring the ball up the court and go into these Euro steps, his pull-up game in the mid-range from the three-point line. I mean, this little hesitation dribble that he does into his pull-up is absolutely unstoppable. I mean, the dude is shooting 47% from 10 to 20 feet this year, which is just scorching. And just to put that into context, Dirk Nowitzki, for his career, shot 50% from 10 to 20 feet. And that's basically the best mark of all time. So he is absolutely scorching from all parts of the floor. His game is, I mean, just the polish that he has continued to add to his game is just absolutely incredible. And it's a different conversation for another day, but it's worth mentioning that if the Sixers don't make a trade with who they have in Ben Simmons, this asset that isn't giving them any value at the moment, if they let that sit this season, you don't know if Joel Embiid will be able to play like this. You don't know how long he'll be able to do this. History tells us that 7-footers, they can drop off like that. All it takes is one injury. And obviously Joel Embiid has a history of that. And I just think it's a dangerous game they're playing. That's all I can say. But let's look at his numbers for the past week. I mean, the guy hasn't had a game under 30 points since January 15th. And even that game, it was only one game under 30. So, I mean, he went 32, 32, 40, just incredible. Had a 50-point game recently as well. I mean, nothing more you can really say other than just really good stuff from Joel Embiid.
Well, great minds think alike, don't they?
Oh no.
Um, so I I came into this with a plan because I knew this had the potential to happen. So don't worry, I have a backup plan. But
Okay. Okay.
um, it was Joel Embiid was first on my list too because what he is doing right now, and this is prospect of the week, right? This isn't prospect of the past 2 months, prospect of the past year, whatever.
Right.
But regardless, whatever time frame you want to choose, up until recently, 2022, all the way back to the start of the season, being named, and rightfully so, an all-star starter. He's in the MVP conversation in my eyes. Just in my eyes, kind of dragging this Philadelphia team into the playoffs. You kind of put it into perspective, but I want to dig a little deeper. Over the past 4 games, 42 and a half points per game, 12.8 rebounds per game, because this would be like the past week or so,
Right.
4.5 assists per game, 57% from the field on only 32 minutes per game. Over the past 4 games, he has scored 170 points in 128 minutes, which averages out to 1.32 points per minute. The only player who has ever had a higher points per minute average in any 4 game stretch in NBA history, you'd have to go all the way back to Wilt Chamberlain. So that just shows you how dominant he has been. He is basically, I haven't watched a ton of the Sixers lately, but he's the reason you're watching the Sixers right now.
Right.
So, and you mentioned, it's interesting because there's another dominant center out west. So it's like 2 dominant centers in what feels like a guard wing driven league. They're kind of, in some ways, stealing the show right now. But we brought this segment to the show because we wanted to highlight athletes of all different sports, right? Not just the 2 main sports that we focus on this podcast, football and basketball. And of course, we do college and pro. But I watched because this past weekend, everyone was focused on football, and rightfully so. Nobody was really. I mean, there was some good college basketball as well, but those divisional games stole the show. But this guy, Francis Ngannou of UFC, just won his just won the UFC heavyweight belt. He's young, from Cameroon. A great story. I watched a lot about his story on SportsCenter. There was an article, ESPN featured article earlier this week. The new heavyweight champion of the world, along with Tyson Fury. I didn't watch the fight this past weekend against Game, but I watched some of the highlights, and man, he is powerful. He's like, you hate to compare anybody to Tyson, but if anybody, like, he might be the new age Tyson. It's just the way he can pack a punch and all this stuff. Just incredible stuff. I encourage you to go check out his story. Just won the heavyweight title. He was sort of and I don't know a lot about boxing or UFC or whatever, but I think he was just a cool guy to highlight what he's done already to this point in his career, being new to this stage, kind of new to America in some ways, and just the way that he's found a way to dominate. He's a rising star in the world of boxing and UFC. So I don't really have much else to say, but I just thought he was an interesting.
But hey, that's 2 for 2 for Cameroon for this week. What a week for Cameroon, right? And I actually think Cameroon won their match in the AFCON soccer tournament that they have in Africa. So
They
hey,
probably.
Cameroon 3 for 3. Shout out to
Yeah.
Cameroon.
Shout out to
Yeah,
Cameroon. Who would have
yeah,
thought that would have worked out that way? So,
right.
um,
But yeah, with that, we will hop right into this football. We'll start with the Bengals Chiefs game, since that'll be the early window game. A lot of people are having their doubts about whether this game will be close or not, and will the Bengals be able to hang tight enough and bring it to the fourth quarter. But for me, it's very, very simple for the Chiefs. Defensively, if you just double team whoever the first read for their play is, make Joe Burrow go from 1 to 2 in his reads. From that point, I think their pass rush can get there. If you take away that Jamar Chase first read, that 9 route down the sideline, or whatever the case may be, it's a wrap almost. I will say this though, I am waiting on the injury report to see whether Tyrann Mathieu will play, because that will be huge. Because all of a sudden, if Tyrann Mathieu isn't playing, if you get that quarter half look that the Chiefs like to play with their safeties, and Tyrann Mathieu isn't out there, then you can load 3-by-1 to one side, and you can get a matchup with Daniel Sorensen where he's got to choose between whether he wants to guard Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins. Pick your poison when it cuts to that point. So if Tyrann Mathieu doesn't play, then the Bengals can absolutely put up points against this team. There's no doubt about it. With the weapons that they have, and the way that Joe Burrow can make plays outside of the pocket, he will be able to score. But Tyrann Mathieu, I think he will play, and that's why I'm definitely leaning towards the Chiefs, because you might get a stop here and there early, but once they start cooking, good luck stopping Patrick Mahomes in this group on offense.
right. For the Cincinnati Bengals, it's simple for me. Number one, as you have said multiple times over the course of this postseason, win with the guy who brought you here and stay aggressive. You have to win with Joe Burrow. And, we've talked a lot about his growth and, moving in the pocket and extending plays because he has to. I mean, this Bengals offensive line is still a work in progress, as we saw last week and seen for much of his career to this point. But I think another thing that goes, we talk about his confidence, the way he attacks downfield. But I think one thing that goes underrated with Joe Burrow, maybe people realize it, but just don't mention it enough because it's just so obvious, is unlike some other quarterbacks in this league, he trusts his receivers to go make plays. He will throw these receivers the ball, even if they're, he's a risk taker. And I think that's important. He's going to have to take, some of those risks if the Bengals want to win this game. So win with the guy that brought you here. Stick with Joe Burrow. Put the ball in his hands. He's gotten you to this point. Obviously, let those playmakers go make plays. And I agree with you. They will be able to move the ball within the 20s against this Chiefs defense. For me, what they do in the red zone is going to be key, because I know this Chiefs defense, it gives up a lot of yards, but it can be real good. They can be real good situationally. And so I'm interested to see, particularly with how this offensive line struggled last week. I do not think they're going to struggle like that against this Chiefs defense. However, Chris Jones against the interior of this Bengals offensive line will be key, because if that pocket, if he's pushing the pocket on that interior and Joe Burrow can't step up and get to the top of his drop and set his feet and make throws, it's going to make it real difficult. So, and the Chiefs do like to blitz a lot, but I think this time around they will play probably more too high shell, give a little bit more help to those corners who were just absolutely outmatched in the Week 17 matchup. So I think it's going to be critical for the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo defensively to time their blitzes. They're not going to blitz the entire game, although they were one of those teams that liked to blitz all season long. But to give them different looks, try to get pressure with 4, and then blitz when you have to. But for the Bengals, it's Joe Burrow, but you also want to make sure that Joe Mixon is a big part of this game plan. Whether you have to pass to open up some of the running lanes, if the Chiefs are playing that too high shell, to give more help to this, defending this Bengals passing attack, or you have to run it early and work the passing attack off of that. I just think no matter what the game plan is, Joe Mixon is going to have to be a big factor if the Bengals want to win this game. And then from the other side of the ball, there's really not much I can say for the Bengals defensively other than good luck. Patrick Mahomes at home in the playoffs so far in his career has been, out of this world. 24 touchdowns, only 1 interception. They have so much speed on the outside. And this McKinnon guy, who they now have at running back, he's a threat both in the passing and running game. So I would say for the Bengals defensively, stay in your rush lanes, because we saw you have to stay disciplined in your rush lanes, because we know now that Patrick Mahomes can beat you with his legs. He's okay with just escaping the pocket and running for first downs, and that's exactly what we saw last week. Stay poised in your rush lanes. Try to get pressure with just your front 4, although that's going to be hard without Ogunjobi and some of these interior pieces. I think DJ Reader, just like he has all postseason long, will need to play big again in this game if they want to have a chance to win. And, as I always say, and I've said this the past couple of games, you have to force a turnover or 2 and be good on third downs. It's really as simple as that for me. So I know that was a lot, but basically what it boils down to for the Bengals, win with Joe Burrow, make sure, do the same thing you've done all season, because you will be able to move the ball. With or without Tyrann Mathieu will make it the degree of difficulty, vary. But make sure that this running game, you don't abandon the running game. However you have to do it, incorporate Joe Mixon into this game plan offensively. And for the Chiefs defensively, you probably want to play more too high, cover 3, help these corners a little bit more than they did, in the Week 17 matchup, and time your blitzes to where in big situations, speed up that Burrow clock. But you probably don't want to, blitz the entire time, because Joe Burrow's really, both these quarterbacks are amazing against the blitz. So I'm not sure how much blitzing we'll actually see. And then from the Bengals' perspective defensively, get pressure with 4. I don't know really what else to say. If you can do that and force a couple turnovers, then you'll have a chance, because Joe Burrow is just that good. I would also err on the side of the Chiefs, that being said, just because I've seen it before. They have the advantage in the trenches, and Patrick Mahomes just doesn't lose at home in the playoffs. And I just think they're a better better team. But that takes nothing away from what the Bengals have done this season. And, the fact that they're in at this point right now in Joe Burrow's second season is just, hats off to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I'll say this about the Cincinnati defense before we move on, though. You got to chip Travis Kelce or something. You got to get them or get him off of his rhythm, because if you let Travis Kelce pick you apart in that short passing game in the middle of the field, it opens up everything behind it. It opens up the run game. It puts pressure on the linebackers in play action. It's a nightmare. So I think we saw a little bit in the first game. They put Jesse Bates on Travis Kelce. It's a little bit of a size mismatch, but I just think Jesse Bates has the right mentality when it comes to being physical with Travis Kelce. Because, if you get a holding penalty or you get a pass interference, actually more so the holding penalties, if you get a holding penalty here and there, you'll live with that over getting beat and getting a 50-yard catch and run, So this Bengals defense has some guys. Let's not act like that they're have no shot at just being able to get a stop here and there. It's just going to be a tall task. That's all. I don't know, man. I think it's going to be closer than people think, just because of how resilient this Bengals team is and how emotional that Bills game really was. That had to have taken a lot out of this Chiefs team. Just to go through a battle like that is just, one for the ages, but also it's so hard to come out the next game and be as sharp as you want to be at the beginning. So if the Bengals want any chance, they got to take advantage of that if that happens.
Absolutely. So you kind of answered it, I guess, but would you take Bengals +7 against the spread?
Yeah, I would. I think there's something about this Bengals team, man. I just think they're going to be able to score. And there's a few times here and there where the Chiefs get cute in the red zone where they, example A, exhibit A, they did that, what was it? That little pitch play with Blake Bell snapping it. What the heck was that? On 3rd and 1 in the red zone, you're taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying they'll do that again, but they like to run a lot of different tricky stuff in the red zone, when in reality, this team has the guys to just run it down their throat. With their offensive line that they have. But, Andy Reid likes to be very creative. And I think sometimes he can overcomplicate things, and Cincinnati can take advantage of it a little bit. Also, people forget Cincinnati was down 14-0 in that game in Week 17. Obviously, in Arrowhead, it will be a different story. If they go down 14-0, that's rough. I don't know if you can really come back from that. But point is, they survived the storm and they were able to recover. Basically saying, like, this team is just extremely resilient no matter what the opponent is.
Absolutely. There's no denying anything you said. I would take Chiefs to win, and if you're gonna bet money on it, Bengals +7 is probably the side. Because I think the point that you made about the Bills Chiefs game just being a highly emotional, highly competitive game. The Bengals are a little more rested, probably just coming into this game, sort of, I guess, with house money. Vegas, it's clear what Vegas thinks. I'm not sure how they think the Chiefs are full. I guess of course, home field advantage plays a big factor in this, but I mean, we just saw these two teams play 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw what happened. So I don't know. I think we're not betting money on it, but if I was going to bet money on it, I'd probably put it on Bengals +7, just because I think we agree that they're going to score points. Like, both these offenses are going to score points. It's probably going to end up being a fairly high scoring game. And if it's anything like the Bills Chiefs game, then we're in for a treat. So
100%.
I think we're on sort of the same side there for maybe some different reasons, but
Right.
we'll move on.
Exactly. So
We'll
move
move
on. Exactly. So 49ers at Rams. Interestingly enough, in that week 17 game, it was it was week 18, not week 17, excuse me. Beg your pardon. But nevertheless, it was a lot of 49ers fans in attendance. I remember specifically there was a lot of moments where on the Rams third down late in that game, it felt like they were on the road. And a lot of experts are expecting some of the same in this game. So very interesting, but there's a lot of stuff in the resale market. There's going to be a lot of red in that stadium. With that being said, though, I'm going to let you start off with the analysis. Who you got?
Well, I think it's a great thing to point out, but I mean, this Rams team was just in a hostile environment in Tampa. So I don't think any of that is going to affect them all that much. And they've already seen it this season. So I don't think that will play as big as a factor as, maybe the media is making it out to be. But anyways, we'll talk about football because that's what's really going to decide this game. For the 49ers, for me, allow the defensive line, the front four to wreak havoc because that's what they've been doing so far this postseason. They've kind of regained that identity of a couple years back with Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa and all of those guys creating pressure, and sit back and play zone coverage. And I know that sounds weird against the quarterback like Matt Stafford, but to be honest with you, this 49ers defense, the secondary, number one, they don't have the personnel to match up man-to-man against these Rams wide receivers, in my opinion. And number two, they are quite frankly a better defense and played better when they play these zone schemes rather than these man coverages against the better quarterbacks that they face this season. And if we just narrow our focus down to Matthew Stafford, first of all, the Niners were a heavy zone coverage team this season. As I just mentioned, they played zone coverage 72% of their snaps. That was the sixth highest in the NFL. But Matthew Stafford, if you look at the two games against the 49ers this season, against the zone, 63.5% completion, 5.8 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Okay. Against man coverage, 85% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. So I'm not saying that, those numbers are going to hold true in this game because it's the playoffs, it's a different game, and, a lot of factors play into this. But if I were the 49ers, the game plan would be get pressure with this defensive front. And I don't know the status of the left tackle. What's his name?
Trent Williams. Oh,
No.
Whitworth. Sorry.
Whitworth. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
So
both left tackles are actually hurt in this game. So
yeah, that could play a factor. So create pressure with your front four. Keep playing these zone coverages that have been working for you, and go from there. Now for the Rams side of things, and I'm talking about the defense a lot, I think the most critical thing for the Los Angeles Rams to win this football game is going to be stopping the run, but not only stopping the run on early downs. Make this 49ers offense and Jimmy Garoppolo, as much as he wins and all the leadership abilities and all this stuff that we talk about, make him win on third down and longs. Set them behind the chains. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think stopping the run on early downs, forcing the 49ers into those third and longer situations, and tackling well in the open field is key for the Rams to win this game. The Niners ran the ball on early downs, meaning first and second down, more than any other team in the NFL. It's what they like to do. And against the Rams in Week 18, they ran the ball on first and second down 73% of the time. So you know what they're going to do most likely. It's just a matter of figuring out a way to stop it. And if you can, well, you should win this football game. And I think the Rams need to attack the right side of the San Francisco 49ers offensive line. I know Trent Williams on the left, he's a questionable decision to play in this game. We don't know. So the 49ers offensive line might be compromised altogether. But the weaker side of this offensive line is on that right side. So I think figuring out ways to attack the weaker points of this 49ers offensive line and get to Jimmy Garoppolo will be key for the Rams. Who do I have winning? I have the Rams winning. However, we know the recent history between these two teams. Sean McVay, I think, started 3-1 in his career against Kyle Shanahan. And since then, Shanahan has won the past 6. He's 6-0 in the last 6 meetings. And you could tell in his press conferences this week when Sean McVay was asked about that, it sort of pissed him off a little bit. So I think we all know that, adjustments are key, real key. And both these coaches are brilliant. And I think the Rams will come out hot. I think, they might take an early lead. But the key in this series has been the adjustments that Kyle Shanahan has been able to make. And so I think the key for the Rams will be making the adjustments to the adjustments that they failed to make in the past, if that makes any sense at all.
Right. It does.
So I don't know. It's 3.5. I feel like that's a little big for a division rival, just given how well and how physical this 49ers football team is. I think it depends on the health of some of these key players. Right now, I take the Rams to win. Whether or not I take them against the spread or not, I don't know. Come back to me on that one.
Yeah, it's interesting, and when you talk about the game of football, I always mention that it's a chess match in terms of the coaching, the players on the field. They have to react quickly and they have to make the right decisions quickly. But when you take two divisional opponents and match them up in the playoffs, it takes that even higher. The schemes and all that stuff, the strategy. These two teams know each other so well that I expect that these two offenses will go deep into their playbooks in this game, possibly plays that we haven't seen all year from them. There could be some pretty creative stuff. That's what I'm expecting. But here's the thing. In the first matchup, or in the second matchup, in Week 18, the Rams running game got absolutely nothing the entire day. And, since the playoffs have started, We've seen the emergence of Cam Akers and the explosiveness that he brings. But he was back in that game as well. He only got a few touches since Tony Michel got the bulk of the carries. They wanted to ease him back, obviously. But nevertheless, he was there and he wasn't effective either. This 49ers defensive line is absolutely fantastic. So for me, I think if I'm the 49ers, I take away that short to intermediate passing game because this zone that they play, it's predicated on these linebackers flying around, and they do. I mean, Al-Shaair, Greenlaw, Fred Warner. I mean, that might have been the most underrated linebacker core in the NFL. I mean, you have Fred Warner, a guy who's a perennial All-Pro. Al-Shaair, who was injured for much of the season, I believe. But as soon as he came back, that defense had a different dynamic. And Greenlaw, who has been solid the entire season. We talk about this secondary a lot, in that before the playoffs, we were talking about how maybe this was the Achilles heel. But I think this front seven for the 49ers, I think they can dominate the line of scrimmage enough to where the big plays that the Rams will make will be often 3rd and longs. I think they're going to be able to win on 1st and 2nd down, and that's going to be a huge key in stopping those long drives that the Rams go on. As you can kind of tell from the tone that I'm kind of talking with, I'm kind of leaning towards the 49ers, and that might be surprising, but let me talk about the offensive side real quick. For the 49ers, I just think with the way Kyle Shanahan game plans against the Rams, he attacks these linebackers. That's the weakness. That's the weaker position group out of the entirety of this defense. You attack the linebackers, whether it be with a running back, get the matchup, bring Debo into the backfield, whatever you got to do. They attack these linebackers. They did it over and over and over again in both of the first 2 matchups this season. And also in the short passing game, what the 49ers love to do is they stretch those linebackers in their zones. They make them guard a large spread of field with the routes that they have going through these zones. They stretch them horizontally, they stretch them vertically, and they make the linebackers choose which to cover, and it gives Jimmy Garoppolo easy reads. And that's one of the main keys to why this 49ers team has been successful offensively against the Rams. Man, and you know, even with all that being said, though, I'm still not even that confident. To me, it's really just a gut feeling that I have with this 49ers team. But I do admit that this Rams team 100% has more star power, has more explosiveness offensively and defensively. Just their ability to rush the passer at an extremely high level. And I'll say this, if Trent Williams doesn't play, and then you have Leonard Floyd going against a backup, and then Von Miller on the other side, Aaron Donald at the middle, then that would be huge. And that's not something that a lot of people are going to talk about, since it's a lineman, it's line play, you know, it's not flashy, but Williams is just as important to this offense as anybody else. I mean, he's the best left tackle in football, no questions asked. So that's a big deal. So I'm taking the 49ers to win if Williams plays, but if he doesn't play, I see the Rams having a big day with that defensive line.
You know, it's if the 49ers win this game, and, I give them a good chance. Not a great chance, but a good chance, actually. Just because of the success that they've had against the Rams as of late. I think that matters more than people think. And just because, regardless, they're a dangerous team. They can play physical football. And their quarterback, despite his limitations, he wins. He wins games. He finds ways. As long as he doesn't make the mind-boggling mistake at the end of the games. But what I was going to say is this has sort of been a trend now since the playoffs started. I came in saying the 49ers were a dangerous team, could win a couple games in the playoffs, yet I did not think they could probably get to a Super Bowl. However, I picked against them twice. This is now my third time picking against them. And if they win this weekend, maybe all they need is for Michael Ween to pick against them. So I might have to pick.
You never know.
I might have to pick them in the Super Bowl if that's the case. I don't know, man. Of course, it all depends on the matchup, but it's just kind of a weird thing. But I've also said at the same time that I think the Rams, on their best day, could possibly be the best team in the NFL. So we'll just have to see what Rams team we get.
Right.
And
you know what? Sorry to cut you off, but I just think possibly the biggest factor in this game might be the turnover battle. Because you look at this Rams team, they are very streaky offensively. They're explosive, and when they're in rhythm, they are extremely tough to stop. But it seems like when they turn it over, they look sloppy for the next 5 minutes of the game. It's like they completely collapse. Their entire mojo just bam, it's gone. So a fumble, an interception, whatever the case may be, if the 49ers want to win, they got to force one. They got to make a play.
It feels weird that we're not even mentioning special teams this episode because
yeah,
that's why the 49ers are here, to be quite honest with you. But I do think that kind of evens out this time around because the Rams tend to be pretty good, or at least a lot better than the Packers are on special teams. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm personally going to go with the Rams to win and cover. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win but not cover. I'll take the Bengals. But I do think I'll give the 49ers a pretty good chance, given that what you said, Trent Williams does play. So I'm not, extremely worried about the Rams without Whitworth. However, against this defensive line, it might play a bigger factor. So we'll see. The guy who stepped in for Whitworth last week actually did a pretty good job. Note Boom, I think is his last name.
Right.
But this is a different animal, this 49ers defensive line. So those are our picks for the conference championship games. And I think next week, we're probably going to take a little bit of a break from the NFL. I mean, we might talk about some of the coaching chaos that's going on right now. But as we all know, there's a week in between this weekend and then, of course, Super Bowl week. And then we'll, of course, jump back into it the following week to, do our big Super Bowl preview. But I guess I have the matchup that I really want to see, which is Sean McVay against Andy Reid. And then you have a rematch of 2 years ago with Shanahan against Andy Reid. So regardless, I think those are the two two matchups we want to see. But who knows? Who knows? Okay, so with that, if you don't have anything else to say, we'll hop right into our last segment, which is college basketball.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this weekend, the SEC Big 12 Challenge. If you're unfamiliar, well, it's basically every Big 12 team gets matched up with another SEC team. And they play the games, and we see who wins more games, the SEC or the Big 12. It's that simple. We're not going to talk about all the games, of course, but there are some games that I want to highlight. Of course, we had the two winningest programs in college basketball history matching up one more time, Kentucky and Kansas. That should be good. We have Texas and Tennessee, the return of Rick Barnes, who coached here in Austin for 18 years, made the NCAA tournament 17 times, and of course, led Texas to their only Final Four in school history. Among others, we have Baylor matching up against the Alabama team that's talented, but has kind of fallen apart as of late. And then we have a good Oklahoma team, I think, traveling on the road to play number 1 Auburn. So some good matchups here. What stands out to you, in terms of these
To
matchups?
me, I would probably say I actually think an underrated one is actually the Mississippi State Texas Tech game. Actually, Texas Tech, I can't remember his name. He's just that 6'5" big burly dude. He played fantastic the other night against Kansas, that double overtime game. That was unbelievable game. But can't think of his name right now. It's like, do you know it? Whatever, it's fine. But yeah, I just actually think that game is really interesting because Mississippi State has given a lot of the top SEC teams a run for their money. They haven't been able to finish, but they're solid enough to be competitive.
Right. I think that's a great point. Mississippi State, Texas Tech is playing well. They've already loaded up their resumes with a bunch of quad 1 victories. Could have gotten one a couple nights ago against Kansas if it weren't for the brilliance of one Ochai Agbaji. And that's what I want to talk about first, is this Kansas-Kentucky matchup. Obviously, if you don't know, like I said earlier, the two winningest programs, two blue bloods in college basketball history, Bill Self against John Calipari. There's two interesting matchups for me in this Kentucky-Kansas matchup. Number one is on the interior. Oscar Tshiebwe. If you haven't heard of him or haven't watched him, he's a double-double machine, has a double-double in 13 out of 19 games so far this season. He's averaging 17 points and 14 rebounds. Leads the entire country in offensive rebounding percentage and total rebounds. It's just a force on the interior. And, is also very adept at scoring around the basket. I think the matchup of him against David McCormick, the big for Kansas on the interior, and who is better getting on the offensive and defensive glass, who wins that rebounding battle, will ultimately be key for determining who wins this matchup. David McCormick has had his inconsistencies to start the season, but has been playing a lot better as of late. And I think he's now ranked in the top 5 or 10, along with Oscar Tshiebwe, in terms of offensive rebounding percentage, which is where Oscar Tshiebwe thrives. So I think if he can kind of cancel out a lot of the production or win that matchup, that'll be huge for Kansas. And then number two, we all know that in that Auburn game, their talented freshman, talented guard, Tcu Washington, went down with injury, and he's not going to be playing in this game. So I think if Kentucky wants to win this game, Severe Wheeler and the other guard, Davion Mintz, are going to have to step up big against these great guard and wing players for Kansas. Ochai Agbaji, Christian Braun, you go down the list. I do think Kansas is a better team. However, in college basketball, the better team doesn't win. I would give Kentucky more of a shot if Tcu Washington was playing, of course, because we just haven't seen the shot creation with some of these other guys like Severe Wheeler and Davion Mintz, especially on the perimeter, and they don't have as much experience. But I don't know. It'll be for sure, I think, a great matchup. But what I'm really watching is Ochai Agbaji. You got to watch this guy. He's pretty incredible. He's improved from both 2-point percentage and 3-point percentage this season. He's just getting better by the game, and he's a bucket. And then that interior matchup between Oscar Tshiebwe and David McCormick, I think, will be key. But I'll take Kansas to win that matchup. What do you think?
Well, if you're Kentucky, you've got a big opportunity here. You get the opportunity to go on the road, go to the something field house. What is it called?
Allen Fieldhouse.
Allen Fieldhouse. Sorry. Go into Allen Fieldhouse and get a win on the road to really submit yourselves into the top 8 conversation, basically. And for a team that went 9-16 last year, this is the opportunity to say, okay, we are back. We are back in the picture for that national championship in March. We're here to stay this year. But as you said, I think Kansas is the better team. They have more shot making in my mind, and they've shown to be extremely disciplined on the defensive end as well, with their rotations, their ability to play the pick and roll. So really, Kentucky, if they want to win this game, they're going to have to get hot from 3. If you get these shooters going for Kentucky, I know they have that one player. I can't think of his name, but he's like the Tyler Hero, Devin Booker type. He's the shooter for Kentucky that they always have. Guys like that, if they can get them going, shooting from 3, then they 100% have a shot. That's the great equalizer in this game, in my mind.
And I think we have 2 of the top, I would say, 10 candidates for National Player of the Year at this point are playing in this game.
Right.
Ochai Agbaji, and then for Kentucky, Oscar Tshiebwe. So I think it'll be a great game. But I want to talk about Texas for a minute. They're another great matchup. Going up against Tennessee, homecoming for Rick Barnes and company. They just got a big win against I forget who it was.
Is it Florida? No,
Maybe.
It wasn't Florida.
Who did Tennessee beat this past? Yeah, it was Florida. But before that, it was LSU. They just got a big home win against LSU. So they've been, I would say this is going to be your classic. It's a defensive battle. Both of these teams are good defensively. Texas, I would say, is elite defensively. Tennessee is just a step below. But it's a classic style fight. Texas is one of the slowest teams in terms of pace of play in the entire country. Out of all 366, 365, whatever qualified teams there are, they're like bottom 5 in terms of pace. Tennessee, on the other hand, they like to speed things up. They like to play with pace, get it to their shooters on the outside, run up and down the floor. So this is going to be your classic clash of styles game. Both are good defensively. I do think it'll be sort of that mid 60s, like 67, 61, 67, 63, 68, 64 type of game. If we get to 70s in this game, well, I don't know what to tell you because Texas hasn't showed the consistency offensively to do that yet. And I don't know a whole lot about Tennessee, but I just think it's going to be a slower game. So for Texas, number one, you got to make Tennessee play your game, right? In the half court. Be aggressive, stay aggressive defensively. Make sure you're effective guarding the three-pointer, something that they did very well against TCU the other night. Force turnovers and get those buckets out on the fast break, because what that does is it sort of alleviates the pressure for this half-court offense that struggled at times. And if you can do that, I think stuff in the half court it'll come a lot easier. And then I think the key for Texas is to get two of these three guards to produce for you. Because in the games where they have two of the three guards majorly contributing, it's been really good for them. But when they only have one of the guys really locked in trying to do everything, it's sort of been a who's who at times. I think whether it's Marcus Carr and Andrew Jones, Marcus Carr and Courtney Ramey, or Andrew Jones and Courtney Ramey, you got to have a duo, because in college basketball, we all know you go as far as your guard play and your experience will take you. And that's got to improve for Texas. I can't speak too much to the Tennessee side of things. I just haven't studied them enough. But what I will say is I know they like to run, and I know they're a pretty good three-point shooting team. So for Texas, those are the two things you really have to key in on. Make them play your game and really guard the perimeter well in terms of those three-point shots. Who's going to win? I have no idea. I just don't know. If Texas brings their A game like they did against TCU, which was a good sign considering that from here going forward, Texas actually has the hardest strength of schedule in college basketball of any team left. 7 of their last 10 games are against teams ranked within the top 20 at this current moment. But that can also be seen as an opportunity for them, because they haven't really had a chance with that weaker non-conference schedule. And then just, they have some good wins, but nothing that makes you say, oh, well, they deserve to be where they should be, which is a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. So really good chance here over this next couple of weeks for Texas to build their resume. But just in terms of this Tennessee game, make them play your style. It's that classic clash of styles game.
Right. And you hit it right on the head. But one thing I will say is Texas' ability to switch on the perimeter will really challenge this Tennessee offense. And also, Texas has to hit the defensive glass hard tonight or Saturday. Sorry. But Tennessee, if they get on the offensive glass, then you can kick out the shooters, then you get those open opportunities, and that spells a lot of trouble for Texas. So if you want to be able to win with your half-court defense, which Texas has all the ability to do, it doesn't matter how many stops you get. You got to finish it off with getting the board.
Right. Absolutely. And I just hope that for us and Texas Tech, that you're not looking too far ahead to Tuesday night. Let's just put that out there. If you don't know what's going to go down on Tuesday night, it's Chris Beard's return to Texas Tech, his return to Lubbock. And oh God, I don't know what's gonna be the reception, but I assume that it's not gonna be anything too kind. The way that Texas Tech fans reacted to him leaving to come to Texas. So, man, I just hope Texas nor Texas Tech is looking too far ahead to that game, because these SEC teams, they're battle tested and ready to go. But let's real quick hit on a couple of the other games, and then we'll sign off. I do think that Auburn, who just got I think they were kind of caught off guard. You get ranked number 1, you go to play Missouri, you're expecting to win easily, and they got into a real dogfight. And if it weren't for some stupid plays by Missouri, stupid decisions by Missouri near the end, Auburn probably loses that game. So I think now with the bullseye on their back, this is the first time they've ever been ranked 1 in basketball. Oklahoma will be a good litmus test. I do think, since it's being played in the jungle, and Jabari Smith is by far the best player on the floor anytime he takes the court, Auburn will just win the game. But Oklahoma, they've got some good players too. And what's the guy's name from Porter Moser has got them playing a good brand of basketball. And they're always a tough, pesky team. So that would be a game I keep my eye on, although I do expect Auburn to win. TCU and LSU is an interesting one. TCU beat Iowa State, but then got crushed by Texas on Tuesday night at home. So I'm sure they're going to be raring to go to get back on track after that. They're a good team. They got some players. But LSU, just like Texas, really sound and really good defensively. Will Wade has them playing a physical defensive style of basketball, and it's going to be interesting to see how TCU adjusts to that, given they just faced a similar style in Texas and got absolutely run out of the building. And then the other matchup I wanted to talk about was let's see here. What was the other game that I wanted to mention? Oh yeah, Baylor and Alabama. That could be an interesting one, given that it's being played at Alabama, but NATO's team as of late has kind of fallen apart. Let's see, what have they done in the past couple games? They lost to a bad Georgia team. Let's see here. They lost to Mississippi State. They lost to Missouri. They lost to Auburn. They've had a rough stretch as of late. They lost to Davidson right before conference play started. So I don't know. This is kind of the breaking point, I would say, of Alabama's season. If they want to have any chance of going to the NCAA tournament, well, they got to turn things around pretty fast. And it's going to be really hard to do that against Baylor. But you have home court. Anything can happen in college basketball. So we'll just have to see.
Well, I guess you could say that the tide has to turn. But okay, I'll stop. Sorry. Anyway, this game, honestly, I don't know too much about Alabama. They've been decent this year. As far as I know, they were, what were they? The Sweet 16 team last year. Really, really pretty deep run in the tournament. Further than I've ever seen them go, as far as I've watched college basketball. But anyway, they're a team that has some experience. So in a big game at home, they're going to feed off their home fans. I'd like to see them maybe get out and run a little bit, try to get some fast break points before the Baylor defense can set, because it's going to be tough sledding scoring against this Baylor defense, as always. So.
Exactly. So a lot of great games this weekend. I know, actually, it works out well now because there are no NFL games on Saturday. But SEC Big 12 Challenge. A lot of great college hoops games coming up. We're almost to February, which is pretty crazy. And, we're almost to that point in time where we start, looking ahead to what is coming in March. What we look
My
ahead to
computer is about to die. I'm gonna get a charger real quick.
what we look ahead to every season, and that's March Madness. So, I'd encourage you, if you have the time, to watch some of these games and to just watch college basketball in general as much as you can, moving forward. Now that NFL is winding down, and it's almost to that point where we only have basketball really going on. So the only real way you can get a feel for some of these teams is for making your brackets in March is to actually watch the team. So I would turn on your TV and sit down and try to watch some of these games. But regardless, we will be continuing to put out good content for you guys. Next week will probably be a mix of different things. Expect some NBA. I would even expect some coaching carousel talk for the NFL, as I said. And then maybe we'll throw in a couple curveballs. Maybe we'll start our golf segment. Maybe we'll talk about the lockout.
Maybe some baseball. Yeah,
maybe some baseball. There has been some progress, and there is some light at the end of the tunnel for this lockout. So maybe we'll talk about that. And there's lots of stuff that we can get into. But next week will kind of be a mix of things, and then we'll hop right back into the football conversations when the Super Bowl week. But for that, all that being said, I think that's it for this episode.
Yeah, and shout out to Andrew Wiggins, all-star starter.
Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, no idea.
But hey, I haven't watched enough of the Warriors. I mean, it's easy to look at the numbers and say, oh, well, that guy shouldn't be like, he's like, if you were going to look at the numbers of all the Western Conference All-Star stars, and then you saw Andrew Wiggins, you'd be like, that guy doesn't fit in this group. But numbers don't tell the entire story. Right. I do think there are some factors that played into, now that I think about it, and you pointed some of them out to me before we recorded this, that contributed to him getting the nod, all-star starter. So congratulations to him. But I do think overall we were pretty good back when we did our all-star starter predictions for who we would take. I think we hit with pretty good accuracy. But yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, do everything that we say every podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. Enjoy the games this weekend. We will see who gets the Super Bowl 56. Will it be the Rams? Will we have the second straight year where a team gets to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium? Or, as Annie said, and as Annie predicted, will the 49ers continue to win somehow, some way? So with that being said, shout out to Big Ben on his retirement. It's finally official. And I guess, I don't know, what should be the closing for this? I'll let you do
just
one.
like Andrew Wiggins being a bust, we are going, gone. Shout out to the Maple Mamba. Peace out.
Peace out. The Maple Mamba.